And now more than ever, everybody is being called to lean into the unknown. The phrase that keeps coming up over and over and over is leaving the consensus and jumping into chaos. It is time to jump into that pool. I worked a lot with Osiris several years ago, and one of the things that Osiris said time and time again was, you can walk around the swimming pool all day long trying to figure out how to get wet, or you can just jump into the pool and get wet and see what happens. Hey friends, it's Amar. I hope this message finds you well. I have another video for you today. This is a current timeline update, calling this the Ascension Wave Impact. Like I talked about in my previous video, the energies this month are really, really big, and there is a massive Ascension wave coming through right now, activating all of us in some way. Those of us who perhaps were asleep or unaware or not paying attention or denying or ignoring are finding it increasingly difficult to do so. And those of us who are conscious and on the path are finding ourselves really pushed and really stretched and really expanded. As always, my job is to make the woo-woo real. I am here to offer practical insight and guidance to take these really high-level, abstract, spiritual, and mystical ideas and concepts and bring them down to earth. My goal is to make it accessible, to make it real, and to make it practical so that you can begin to apply it to your experience and to your life today. With all of my content, this is an evergreen message. What that means is that no matter when you find it, no matter when it comes across your feed here on YouTube, it's the perfect time for you to view it. So although I am recording this in mid-February of 2025, whenever you are viewing it, whenever you are watching it, just consider that this is a timely message for you. As always, take what resonates, what feels true, what feels like something you can connect with, and let the rest go. If you find my content to be useful and valuable, I would appreciate some sort of engagement with the content, liking, subscribing, sharing, and turning on the notifications bell. What I'm going to talk about in this video today, a lot of this has come through recent client sessions. You know, one of the really, really beautiful things about this practice that I've been doing for over 10 years now is that my clients come in waves. They always seem to come like in groups, or what I say batches of clients that are all getting a very similar message. And what that does is that gives me a really beautiful bird's eye view to look at a large group of individuals and see, oh, wow, there are some common threads that are kind of running through the collective experience right now that are showing up time and time again in my clients' experiences, oftentimes in my experience as well. So that's what I'm offering you today. In fact, in this video, I'm sharing with you an excerpt from a recent client session to give you a little bit more insight about a lot of the themes that I'm talking about. One of the themes that keeps coming through over and over that I'm going to talk about here in a bit is this idea of grounded delusion. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but trust me, it makes sense. And I think that it's a really, really powerful perspective that we can take and arm ourselves with as we're moving into this uncharted territory and these unknown waters. This clip will also give you a little bit of the flavor of what it's like to work with me one-on-one. If you're interested in booking a private session, the link is below in the description here to my calendar. You can book a private session with me and we can work together and we can see what comes through specifically for you. So one of the things that I am seeing consistently across the board, I would say pretty much every single client that I have had over the past couple of weeks since the beginning of the month has had some version of this showing up. And without fail, every single person, when I'm reading their field and I'm looking into the right side, the future potential, it is so bright that I cannot see anything. It is just pure energy. It's just that it's like looking at like a foggy day where everything is just blotted out, and it's like this white field that I cannot make out any discernment, any shapes, anything clear. What that tells me is there is a tremendous amount of energy up for grabs right now. What we are looking at in terms of what's coming in the future is pure potential. Right now, I am seeing so much change and flip and morph and shift in terms of timelines and potential future experiences and events, especially when it comes to our individual path, because where we are right now is we are moving into territory that is totally uncharted waters. We are moving into a physical experience that is unlike anything that we have ever experienced before. And now more than ever, everybody is being called to lean into the unknown. The phrase that keeps coming up over and over and over is leaving the consensus and jumping into chaos. It is time to jump into that pool. I worked a lot with Osiris several years ago, and one of the things that Osiris said time and time again was, you can walk around the swimming pool all day long trying to figure out how to get wet, or you can just jump into the pool and get wet and see what happens. What you are creating this year is entirely new. So it's not going to look familiar. It's not going to be something that you necessarily understand right away, and it's not going to look like anything you've created before. That is actually a really good thing. What it tells me is that there are no mistakes. There is no way to get it wrong. What I keep seeing over and over is that those of us who have been doing our work and those of us who are leading the charge and moving beyond the history and moving beyond that consensus reality, we are creating new templates. We are creating new models. We are creating new blueprints, and they've never been done before. So if something has never been done before, there's no historical record of it, there's no model of it, how can it be wrong? If you're the first person doing something, or it's the first time you've tried something, how can it be wrong? How can you fail? It's impossible. It's really important that we understand how crucial inspired action is this year. A physical reality requires your physical action. It requires a physical choice. And I know for many of you out there who are perfectionists, I raise my hand as a former perfectionist, a recovering perfectionist. I understand how challenging that can feel right now because you want to get it right and you want to do it well. But here's the thing, even the master chef who knows how to do it all, who has all of the supplies and the tools and the kitchen, gadgets and every single possible ingredient in the pantry before them, even the master chef has to go through the process of making the food. At some point, you just have to get up off your couch, go into the kitchen and start making something. So you have all the ingredients and the tools, and now you just have to decide what you're making. So I want to talk a little bit about chaos. And this is something that I've mentioned quite a bit in the past couple of videos because chaos is going to be our friend for the next couple of years. Chaos doesn't have to be a bad thing. Chaos and creation are two sides of the same coin. Chaos is always a sign that new things are being created because something has fallen apart. When a structure falls apart, it releases a tremendous amount of energy because the molecules and the atoms and the vibrations that were holding that form into a specific shape and into a specific experience have been divested or withdrawn, or they have started to fall apart. So that releases a whole bunch of energy. And now there is this vast field of energy that we are all swimming in that is just begging and asking for conscious, direct intention and action from you to begin to create something. Here's the thing about energy and creation. Those who would violate and corrupt divine law can only create by stealing from something else. Do you understand what I'm saying? Darkness cannot create itself. Because it has separated itself primarily from the light, it has to take light and energy from other sources in order to create. Darkness cannot create from itself. It is void of light. It cannot tap into pure potential energy. It can only take or steal or rob or drain or siphon from some other thing that is already manifest. So that is one of the big keys right now, is that the pure potential is only available to those who have decided to serve the higher realities and the higher timelines. The light is ripe and ready right now for benevolent intent and divine creators who are ready to move beyond the current reality and the record of our history. This is where I want to talk a little bit about this idea of grounded delusion. And again, I have a clip coming up from a recent client session where this idea initially started to come in my session with her. And this idea of grounded delusion, and what they've been talking about is, think about the airplane. Think about any creation that was revolutionary. Think about any human experience or invention that moved the collective human experience beyond what had already happened historically. And the airplane is a good example of that. When you are creating something new, and we'll just continue to use the airplane as an example, you have to be a little bit deluded. You have to be willing to look at the current reality, and even though what you want and what you envision may not currently be here in the physical reality right now, you have to be just a little bit crazy enough to say, you know what? I don't care. if there's no model for this. I don't care if nobody has done this before. And I don't care if 98% of the world is telling me that I'm crazy and that I'm going to crash and burn and die a fiery death. I know in my heart, I know in my gut that I can create this machine that flies like a bird, and that's what I'm going to do. So the idea of grounded delusion is this concept that you have to be willing to believe in the vision of the future of your life, of the experience or the thing that you are creating more than you believe in the current lack of it. This is like Abraham Hicks, Neville Goddard 101. This is like how to manifest and how to create is you find the vision, you receive the aha moment, the epiphany, the vision from on high, and you invest yourself in it and you make it real through your allegiance to it, through your commitment and your dedication to it, and you begin to create and cultivate an emotional experience of it, and you start to vibrate at the frequency of that reality, and over time it must become real. So grounded delusion is saying when you are really, really honest with yourself about what you want, and you are really, really honest with yourself about what you are currently seeing on the world stage, and you decide which one you are choosing. Are you continuing to invest yourself in what you see happening out there right now? Because remember, this is the primary reality and this is the secondary reality. Everything that's happening out here is already old news. It's already manifested. It's already on its way out. Bashar talks a lot about this where he says less than 5% of your reality is objective. More than 95% of your reality has no meaning. It is subjective. It is an interpretation. It is something that you create through your expectation, through your vibration, through your emotion, and through your perspective. So the majority of the energy that is available to us right now is neutral. It is waiting for your intention, your desire, your belief, and your vision so that it can begin to manifest itself as that version of reality. So this is the choice that you have to ultimately make. Are you going to look at the external, secondary, already kind of dead and gone reality and let that tell you what is true and what is possible? Or are you going to tap into this vision, into this frequency, into this vibration, and become unshakable in your belief that the vision that you have for the reality you want to experience can and will and eventually must happen because you have decided it is so? The choice is yours. That's where we are. So I want to share a little bit more about this idea of the grounded delusion. And I'm going to show you a visual here in just a second that perhaps will help you to begin to understand it. But this idea is breaking from the consensus reality, out of the consensus and into the chaos. The consensus reality is the center. It is the average of what most humans currently on the planet believe is true, what they invest themselves in, and what they would say are just the rules of reality. This is the way it is. This is how it is to be a human. This is how it is to be a Canadian or an American or a South American or, a French person or whatever the thing is. This is just what it means to be my gender, my skin color, my demographic, my zip code, whatever. And that is the average. This is what most people walking around, probably 90% of the world, believes and just accepts as true and is not really interested in challenging or moving beyond. So here's the thing about consensus reality. Here's the thing about an average. We all know that mathematically, an average is when you take more than one number, you add them together, and then you divide that sum by the number of inputs. So if you have three numbers, you add them together, you get that total, and then you divide it by 3 to find the average. So essentially, the way that I think of the average as a visual representation is this. You have the average, and you have the center right here. So the center is what most people believe. This is, let's say, I don't know, 90% of the global population and what they believe is true, what they accept is real, and what they would say is just factual information. On this end, we have the low end of the average. So this is the lower numbers. This is expecting less. This is someone who you could say is really negative or really pessimistic or really cynical or really bitter or really low vibration, or their belief system is super limited, very, very short-sighted, and they're kind of the person that says, well, I only believe it when I see it. So that's the low end of the average. Up here, you have the high end of the average. These are the people who are the visionaries. These are the people who are the pioneers. These are the people who are willing to go outside of the collective consensus reality and say, does it really have to be like that? The vision that I have for the future, I don't see it anywhere. And 90% of the population are actually, this, including this average down here, all of them are telling me that this can't be done, that it's impossible. But I know it in my gut. I know it in my heart. I know it in my bones and in my blood that this is what I came here to do. This is the vision that I have for the future. And so I'm going to be willing to move beyond the boundary of what is acceptable or what is known, the historical record, and say, actually, I do think it's possible, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. Here is the thing. The center cannot advance itself. The consensus reality cannot move itself forward. It is the center. The average cannot move itself beyond the average. It's impossible. The only thing that can move the center beyond the center, the only thing that can make the average higher and move it incrementally towards a higher perception or a higher frequency is the high end. You are the visionary. You are the pioneer. It is not necessary for you to focus on what is happening in the consensus reality. The consensus reality is not going to get it. They're not going to be able to get it. It is impossible. The only way anybody in this central consensus reality can begin to move beyond their perception and their perspective and their old belief system is by their own awakening, by their own experience of coming to an understanding or being given a vision or a purpose that moves them beyond the center. My point here is that if you want to advance this part of the population, you have to be willing to hang out here. If you have a vision, if you have a dream, it is up to you to at some point move beyond the center of your comfort zone, of the accepted narrative, of the accepted reality, of the consensus conversation and say, you know what? I'm going to risk it. I'm not going to sit on my biscuit. I'm going to move beyond the boundary of what we've been told is possible, of what we've been told is acceptable and true. And I'm actually going to do what I can do to push the envelope. And when you push the envelope on your vision, when you move beyond your own history, your own experience, by default, you move the center. That is the only way humanity has ever advanced, is by those few people who are willing to be looked at as crazy, be told that they are insane, be told that it is impossible, that they can't do it, that they should just stop and come back to the center where everyone belongs. No, ma'am, Pam. That is not where I want to hang out. I left this central consensus reality a whole long time ago. The point here is saying if you want to move the center forward, you have to be willing to leave it. You have to be willing to jump into the chaos, to jump into the unknown and begin and let the central idea and this consensus reality go. So we know that we cannot create change by staying in the center. We know that we cannot advance humanity and our reality and our experience just by staying put in the comfortable and in the known. And for those of you who are perfectionists, for those of you who are terrified of failure, for those of you who are a little bit worried about getting it wrong or being laughed at or being judged, this next section is for you. Here's as short and as simple as I can make it. There is no wrong way. It's never been done before. Like I said, you've never done this before. Humanity has never done it this way before. It's never happened before in this way and through these methods and through these means. So there is no wrong way. We, those of us who have been forging ahead, who have been doing our work, who have been awake and conscious and deliberate on our path, are here because we have something to offer. We have our own way to move the center of the experience forward. We are here to redefine what it means to be human. We are here to redefine what it is to be alive and in a body on the planet at this time. There is no wrong way. You cannot fail. We were indoctrinated into a reality for the past several thousand years that said there was a right way and a wrong way. We were often punished for doing it the wrong way, and especially if we challenged the old corrupt system, absolutely we would be denied or excluded or punished. That's where the fear comes from. That's where a lot of this existential fear of knowing that you want to do something, knowing that it's time to do something, but being terrified of getting it wrong, being excluded, being judged, being punished, or being denied. We are like players on the field who are waiting for some referee to come out and blow the whistle and bench us and give us a foul, a yellow flag, whatever, whatever sports terminology you want to use for having violated some rule that we had no hand in writing in the first place. Here is the key. We are the ones who are writing the new rules of the new game. This is the year that we are creating the new templates. This is about gathering information through doing. This is about going out into the field and applying what you know, the knowledge, the tools, the skills, the experience, and the expertise that you have. This is about going out into the real world and just trying and see what happens. We have all the players, we have all the equipment, we have the field to play on, but everyone's just standing around going, do you know what to do? Where's the referee? I don't want to get in trouble. Oh my God, did I do it wrong? I don't want to foul. I don't want to get put in timeout. I don't want to get benched for the game. You won't. I promise you, you won't. I've been saying this for several years now, actually, but the past few videos have been talking about this over and over and over, the separation of realities. If you have chosen to move beyond, to be in the higher timeline, to do your work, to integrate your shadow, to allow the dissension of your higher self that you can, so you can expand and grow, you are in a reality where you are not going to be harmed or punished for trying the new thing or moving beyond the consensus reality. That's what it is time for. This is one of the other things that's been coming through in sessions. It's about mindful mistakes and joyful failure. 2025, like I said at the beginning of the year, is a bridge year. We are moving from the old into the new. That gives us a whole lot of leeway, a whole lot of wiggle room to try new things, to see what happens. It's not failure, it's just new information. How can it be failure if you've never done it before? How can you fail if you have no idea what you're doing? You may have an inkling, you may have a vision, you may have an idea, but until you begin to apply it, you're not going to know what works. At some point, you have to, like Osiris said, at some point, the only way you're going to know what it is to get wet and to go into the pool is by jumping into the pool. And then once you're in there, you have your experience, and then you get out and you go, okay, next time I'm going to try this. Okay, next time I'm going to try that. That wasn't so successful. I didn't really enjoy that. Next time I want to try it this way. So allow yourself to move into physical action, and here is why. Physical action is how the mind and body are programmed in the first place. The cellular memory, the neural pathways, the muscle memory are there because that's what you have learned. That's what you were taught. That's how you were programmed. That's what you inherited in your DNA and in the memory of your lineage. And so the only way that you are going to challenge that, dismantle that, and deprogram it is by trying, is by doing, is by taking action. The only way that you are going to prove to yourself that there is no boogeyman waiting for you in the bushes to leap out and scare you and terrorize you is by stepping out of line and just doing it. The only way that you are going to prove to yourself that your fear of heights, as real as that fear may feel, the only way you're going to prove to yourself that it's unjustified is by exposure therapy. That's kind of where we are. So if you're finding yourself paralyzed or petrified through the fear of getting it wrong or doing it wrong or being judged or being laughed at or being excluded or whatever, I'm here to tell you, you have to decide to start moving in the direction of what you want and begin to do and begin to choose and begin to act ASAP. That's the only way you're ever going to prove to yourself that it's possible. The only way to shut that fear voice up that says, oh my God, don't do it. You're going to die. You're going to be excluded. You're going to be laughed at. Well, maybe so, but I'm already miserable. I'm already terrified because that voice won't shut up. It keeps telling me time and time again to stay small. And staying small and denying yourself ultimately becomes a really painful, a really toxic, a really difficult, challenging experience that makes your life teeny, teeny, tiny, really small and restricted and constricted. So the only way that you are going to prove to yourself that you can do it and that no, you're not going to die, you're not going to lose, it's not all going to fall apart, is by doing it. It's like that scene in The Matrix when Neo wakes up and he goes into the simulation and what's his name is teaching him how to jump across the buildings. What's his name? What's that guy's name? Morpheus. That's the scene, right? When Morpheus is teaching Neo to jump across the building, the only way that he is ever going to unlearn the limiting laws and the indoctrination of the Matrix is by trying to jump from one skyscraper to another. It is the mind and the body that hold the cellular memories of the old reality. So the only way you're going to change that programming is through physical action. You got to try to leap across the skyscraper at some point. So what I'm going to show you now is the excerpt from my client session where a lot of these ideas initially started to come through. It is a little bit choppy because I wanted to edit out her responses and her face in honor of her privacy. But you'll see a common thread and you'll start to get the sense of how these ideas started to come through and a little bit of a different context for you. So enjoy this clip and hopefully it can give you a little bit more insight on where we are right now. So I think this idea of delusion and the grounded delusion is what came through, this idea of being grounded in the delusion, because I think a little bit of delusion is required to build the new thing. You have to have a vision that you are accountable to. You have to have a vision that you are working in service of. You have to know what the crazy fantasy is to build it. I keep thinking of like the airplane and their vision of, oh, we're going to fly in this machine. There has to be a period, and this is the big theme, and this is what I'm seeing across the board right now, especially with those who are moving up to the next octave of their experience. It is about leaving the consensus reality. It is breaking from the consensus reality because the consensus reality only holds its own center. It cannot leave. It's the average. It cannot leave the average because that's what the average is. The average cannot advance. What advances the average is those who are willing to go beyond it. The only people that are moving society and humanity forward are the ones who are willing to go outside the fence. So in order to move things forward, you have to be willing to be, mathematically speaking, you have to be willing to be above the average. That's the only way things are going to advance. I think a certain amount of delusion is necessary. I think you have to commit to a vision that people can't see yet. The whole world is telling me that I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm not. So I have to drink a little bit of that delusion just to continue to sustain myself. So I think that the grounded delusion is the way to look at it because it keeps you honest, right? To say, am I really crazy? Okay, let me objectively look at this. Let me go into the observer's perch and really look at like, what do I know and what is true and what is calling me and what is feeding me and what can I not stop thinking about, talking about, dreaming about. Those are the real things. Those are the real things. You have to be willing to look at physical reality and say, I don't care what I'm seeing in front of me with my physical eyes. It's not real. If it's not what I want, if it's not what I have envisioned, because that is the choice. The choice is, do I believe in the current physical absence of something as evidence that I am crazy? Or do I look at the world out there and say, y'all are the ones who are crazy. I know exactly what I want, and that's what I'm committing to. I think it's really just a matter of allegiance. Like,
Yeah.
what are you showing up in service of? So I think breaking with consensus reality is kind of where a lot of us are because we know how to doubt ourselves.
We do.
You know how to doubt yourself. You know how to sabotage yourself. You know how to say, oh, I can't today. And then suddenly it's 5 years later and you're still telling yourself you can't. But I think that you have to at some point decide that this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm building. This is what I want. And I know how to deny what I want. I know how to discount my intuition and those subtle body, messages and the language of the true self. I know how to deny that and pretend it's not real. And look what it gets me, misery and suffering. And it is the one way that the small self can keep a foothold in the consensus world is by shaming, that sense of pain of like, oh my God, they're going to judge me. Oh my God, it's going to be bad. Oh my God, it's going to be wrong. Oh my God, I'm going to be excluded again. Well, I would assert that that's exactly what needs to happen. I think the irony of the fear of exclusion is that we exclude ourselves in an attempt to deny the pain of exclusion, all the while never realizing, it's what I wrote in that blog post the other day, like, who am I if not the one who continues to create a reality where I am rejected by someone who cannot give me what I need to begin with? So the denial that we're really harmed by is our own. It's our own pain of excluding ourselves and then saying, well, I had to exclude myself because if I didn't, then they would exclude me. Well, you're already showing up at the party excluded. Of course they're going to exclude you.
Right.
So it's that realization of, oh my God, I just don't belong there. You know, it's that saying, I spent money I didn't have to buy things I didn't need to impress people I didn't like. It's out of the consensus and into the chaos. And the chaos is what happens when we ask for change. And when you ask for change, you get chaos first. That is the harbinger of change. It has to be chaotic. You've got to mar that canvas. You've got to, clear that blank slate. You've got to break the egg. It has to be chaotic when you are creating. This is the key with chaos, is you don't get to decide how it shows up. Or be mindful of what you're praying for, because you will get it, and it will always be chaos first. So the universe has us all by the feet and shaken us upside down to see what's ready to fall out. If it falls out, let it go.
Love it.
The
Yeah.
only thing that can go is the thing that wasn't you to begin with, because the only things that survive the death experience are the things that you already were and always are. When the delusion is grounded in trying to reclaim the dying world, that's when it becomes toxic. Here's the other piece, right? And I've mentioned this probably a million times, that when chaos arrives, it's because something old is breaking down. It is releasing all of the energy that was holding it together. So there is so much energy up for grabs right now. So when you just decide, I'm no longer interested in the average, I'm no longer interested, and I have to decide, am I the one that's moving the average forward or not? So, it's just the decision. That's what it ultimately comes down to, is just deciding, what kind of world do you want to be a part of? So it's just about coming to the understanding that the old world, for all intents and purposes, is dead. The question of seeing yourself as a screenwriter and then asking yourself, the story that I am telling right now about who I am, what context does that put me in? And you get to decide, because each choice and each version of that script has a very specific outcome. And that's where the delusion comes in. Why? Who says I have to be bound by the old script? Who says that that was even real either? In a holographic universe, none of it is real until we believe in it. So, as we're wrapping up, I want to share with you something new and really exciting that I have in the works. It's called Awakening School. It's a 13-week program. It is spiritual boot camp. It is here to transform your life, to help you make sense of this confusing and overwhelming spiritual awakening experience that humanity is currently in the midst of. I remember when I woke up in 2012, the thing that was the most frustrating to me was the lack of practical and accessible spiritual information. So much of it was so high level and so out there and didn't make any sense to me, and didn't give me any way to begin to practically apply it and start making change in my life today. That's exactly what Awakening School was born out of, was a desire to take these really, really high level concepts and ideas and make them real and practical and bring them down to earth. If you're interested, there's a link in my bio or a link in the description to sign up for my newsletter. I'll keep you posted. Awakening School registration starts on March 16th, and it's going to be opening for registration soon. So here's the thing with action. Action and effort don't have to be difficult. The idea of putting in a full day doesn't mean that you have to be depleted and crawling on your hands and knees with exhaustion at the end of it. Action and effort can be a joyful act. It can be free from difficulty and challenge. When you love something and you're inspired by it and you're invested in it, it's not a matter of failing or succeeding. It's just a matter of being so overjoyed and so thrilled that you get to do it, that you finally are able to put your hands in the clay and begin to mold and sculpt your reality. Action is your physical expression of the divine impulse. That's what the masculine energy is. It's action. It's taking that feminine desire, that divine desire and wish for something new, for something different, for a new way of being, for a new flavor, for a new vibe, and putting it into action. When the Creator made the heavens and the earth, it wasn't hard. It was simply the act of letting the internal desire flow out into the physical plane. So let yourself create. Allow the creation to move through you. You are the vessel that is giving birth to it. You are the channel through which it can emerge. Give yourself permission to step fully into your creative gifts. There is no reason to hold back or restrict yourself any longer. You are unlimited, and it is time to show the world your true nature. Here's the truth. These energies are not slowing down anytime soon. These energies are not holding back because you think you're not ready. The train is leaving the station, and all you have to do is say yes and decide to get on it, even though you may have no clear idea of how it's going to get there, of where it's going, or how long it's going to take. I am telling you, 2 years from now, in February of 2027, we are going to look back on this time as if it is an ancient civilization that was so primitive and that was so limited. The changes and the evolution that humanity and the planet are going to be going through in the next 18 to 24 months are going to blow all of our minds. So if you want to move the average forward, if you want to help humanity, if you want to be of service and see a new reality and see a new world, you have to be willing to leave the consensus. You have to be willing to go outside of the acceptable or the expected norm and give birth to the vision, to the purpose, to the passion that only you can. Thanks for watching. I love you. Talk to you soon.